place that you might expect. And you can see just from looking at this that basically what we have in the particum universe is half of a Vecca monad. So that sometimes when we're looking at the form that a monad takes, it could be the entire full 4-quadrant monad, or it might be half, or we might be talking about a monad that has the form of a quarter, that is a single triad. So we see the monad in all of those different forms in different places. The Particum universe has the one that is exactly opposite to this. So it's going to have its crystalla on this axis, and it's going to have its 2 triads also on the opposite axis. So together they all form a single Vecca monad. And this just shows the manifestation template and the primal light and sound template that goes to a single particum universe monad. And then the next one shows the way that the energy actually flows is from the particum primal field into the particum density field.
Sarah, I think he's great that interchange tapes.
So another name for the monadic body is the crystal body. It's the core morphogenetic field, and Cathara 2-3 anatomy is entirely basically about crystal body anatomy at the levels of the Vecca and the Eka. So the names for the crystal body forms are the particum crystal bodies. This is basically the name for the particum monad, is the low T. The particum crystal body is the low Ti. Together, Vecca monad crystal body, the low tum. The Eka crystal body itself is the low ta, and the entire Eka Vecca full crystal body is the low te. And these are the forms of the crystal body light grids. This is the particum low T light grids. This is for the Vecca lotum, and this is for the Eka lota. So this one is actually bigger than either of these relatively. And this is what the crystal body looks like when it's got its capstones on it. The capstones are vortices of energy that connect into the next level up and bring those higher level energies into the crystal body. The low T and the low Ti have 2 capstones each. So the Vecca has 4, the Eka has 4, and then the parallel Eka, brand new concept, also has 4, for a total of 12 in what's called the chariot of fire. So there's a lot of discussion of the chariot of fire and activating that in Cathara 2-3. Now the capstones are important because they correspond to the ascended mastery levels of consciousness. And the way that it works is that when consciousness enters a time matrix for the first time, its scalar grids and its consciousness are fragmented into many small pieces, and it is fully subject to the time cycles of the time matrix. So essentially, in that condition, a being has to reassemble itself piece by piece and walk through every single time cycle, every single incarnation, which can take billions of years to do that. After the first ascension out of the time matrix, it acquires these capstone codes. They're connect to the vortices that bring energy from the ascended levels of mastery into the time matrix. and re-entering the time matrix, that being has those codes that remain in its template that can be activated. And when you activate those codes, even when you're in a time matrix for a second, third, or millionth time, you can become free from the restrictions of time cycles and dimensionalization. So everyone who is indigo has done this first ascension out of a time matrix and has some level of capstone codes. Just reminding you a little bit of the way that the vortex fields work with regard to what we're going to talk about. This is the monad that for us spins counterclockwise. It creates what's called a vortex actual field that spins the opposite direction. This is the dimension 12 divine blueprint. Then there's a virtual field that spins the same way as the central one, and a deflection field that spins the opposite way again. So in a sense, this is just another way to look at the form of the monad. That here are the four monads of the Becca. And in this particular diagram, the dimension 12 blueprint is kind of pulled out of it and enlarged, so you can take a look at it. And then for the light field, it's going to be the dimension 14 blueprint. So the D13 monad spin, can you move that over so people can see the left-hand side? But the D13 spin, and then the dimension 12 blueprint is set as an opposite field from that one. Then the dimension 12 sets the dimension 11, which is the first Ruel dimension. These are all the control dimensions for each one of the Huva bodies. And it sets the way that that shield spins, the way that its rod spins, and the way that it's what's called its parameter field rotates. And that same pattern holds for all of the four densities. So the Gruel spins are the same as the monad spins. It's the opposite for the light fields. The way the light fields work is there's a dimension 13 replica that's created, and then the dimension 14 one is opposite from that. So that the densities and the light fields work the opposite ways with regard to the spins. The ecosphere spins counterclockwise, and the vecosphere spins clockwise inside of that. And inside of that are these four monadic spheres, and then inside of those are the dimension 12 blueprints. So we've got a whole set of spheres that are all rotating opposite directions to each other. The way that the echo works is that it's vertical and it's horizontal, both rotate clockwise. So it's got male rotations and it's constantly transmitting energy outward. The Vecca is the opposite. It's always rotating counterclockwise and receiving energy. And just to remind you of the time cycles, that the Eka has 6 time cycles of 6 expansions each, cycling out from the center, and each one of those is larger than the previous one. And then there's 2 leap cycles following that 6 cycles of 6, which creates the 8 octaves, which goes with the 8 of the monad. The time cycles of the Particum and the Particap decay densities are intertwined with each other. And if consciousness hasn't fully assembled all the frequencies of any particular time cycle, it will have to redo that time cycle. It drops down a whole level and has to do it all over again. So here we've got the pattern of the Rouchet, which is the same pattern of the monad. We've got the 4 in the center and then the 8 on the outside. The ones on the outside are called the octaves, and the ones on the inside are called the harmonics. The harmonics are the inner pillars, and those are the energies that run the time cycles of the individual dimensions. And the octaves are related to the larger time cycles of the Eka and the Veka. So the way that it works for our universe is that the octave shield is vertical, and the harmonic shields are horizontal. So they rotate this way, and the octave shield for the big tidal cycle goes this way. So that actually corresponds to the Rishik shield. I think I want to skip. Can you go straight to the crystal dream seed? It's like a top of your head. Now the location of our monad in our body is at the very center at the azure. And what we've got here is a diagram that shows the Cathara centers for the Cathara grids for each of the dimensions and densities going out. Every single dimension and every single density has a Cathara grid. That each Cathara grid gets larger and larger, but every single Cathara grid has its center point right at the azure, and that is one of the primary locations of the monad. So all the monads link directly into each other through this central azure point, and it forms a direct line of monadic frequency and connection into the Amareya central flame right through the central point of every single Cathara grid. Now the crystal dream seed, you should be really familiar with this diagram by now, because this is basically the dimension 13 monad and the dimension 12 divine blueprint. This is the top of the Cathara grid. This is called the crystal dream seed, and it is a direct connection to the monad. It is the point where the dimension 12 divine blueprint is perpetually resupplied because it exists right at the fission fusion point of that triad. So that as through the breathing, these cycle towards each other, it creates the sparks right at this point, and that keeps the divine 12, the divine blueprint dimension 12, perpetually resupplied for manifestation. In the physical body, this is the dimension 2 level. That is located in the adrenic triangulation in the brain, just a little in front of and below the pineal gland. Actually, go back to So if this isn't connected and operating in the body, then we're cut off from the echo level. And this controls current flows to the rest of the body. The dream seed in the body is like a tiny crystal seal, so it functions just like the rest of the crystal seals in the body. And like the crystal seals that are in the center of the chakras, and also in between the chakras, it opens current flows into the body. So when those seals open, the chakras can open into each other, and the entire central vertical current can open up to be the big eros field, the entire flame. So that's when you get the full flame body activation. Now, the way that kind of communication works with regard to the time cycles is that with the harmonics, we've got the harmonics, we've got the shields for the densities that rotate this way. They rotate horizontal. And just like the cathara grid has the vertical staff, then it's got the horizontal rod. When those shields rotate, the rod spins around with the shield rotation. It's like the sweep hand of a clock. And as that rod spins around, it picks up the energies of the time cycles and then sends them up the staff straight to that point where they can flow back. So do people remember the transduction sequence? Okay. The way it's supposed to be is that there is a direct, the point of now is called the eros point. And there is a flow down through the transduction sequence and into this level of our body, but there's a corresponding backflow that flows all the way back up to source. So this is one of the important ways that that happens. And it's like at this point right here, source can always tell exactly what's happening in these manifestation fields by feeling what kind of spark is being sent back. So you can think of it as source can always tell exactly where you are in your time cycle and where you are in your manifestation cycle, what density you're at, how much energy you have accumulated into your template by feeling the power of that spark coming back up. And the way that the time cycles work is that it's called frequency accretion, but you're not only picking up energy to fill out your template, but you're picking up sparking power at the same time. Because when you go up into the eka, the level of the spark that's run is much bigger. So you kind of assemble that spark in tiny, tiny little pieces as you go through each time cycle. And because when you get to the point where you're going to inhabit that larger body, you need to not only have filled out the lower template, but you have to have pulled into your system enough charge that when you go up a level, you can run that higher current. So you pull that current together really slowly, going through the time cycles. All right, now we're going to talk about monadic reversal. This is essentially that monadic connection point. Is just a different pictorial way of looking at the dimension 12 and the dimension 13 fission fusion point there. And this is actually supposed to be rotated vertically. This is what happens in monadic reversal, is that the staff gets broken. So cosmic order is designed to be a self-balancing system and a self-sustaining system. It's supposed to have perpetual motion and eternal life. But because Source has free will and has given everything in the time matrix free will as well, because we're all created in the pattern of Source, there is the ability up to a certain point to make choices that would actually compromise that. So free will choice is allowed up to the point at which the original intention could be compromised. You can call it co-creation when choices are made that are in harmony with that original intention, and you can then consider that it's like us as the manifest aspects of Source and the de-manifest aspects of Source are working together in a harmonious way to create a reality system. What happens is that every time a choice is made that opposes the original intention, it actually affects the energy in the structure. And the way the shields are created is they're made up of thousands of units of energy receivers called aparthi that are little units of consciousness. And the aparthi themselves get reversed when a non-Christiac choice is made. When that happens, the polarity is reversed and it actually blocks the flow, the natural flow of the primal life force currents. Because the template is a hologram and all parts of the template have the pattern for the whole thing, you can sustain a certain amount of damage, and the parts that are around it can fix it and override it if you get enough energy in, and there's the possibility of flipping those back around. It's like the entire consciousness and the pattern for the whole thing is held by every single part. So you can easily remember how to redo those parts that are damaged and reversed. But if you get to a critical mass point, you can't do that anymore. It's like there's not enough of the original image or template left to have it reconstructed. And the way that the staff works is that I think we tend to think of these structures as like really kind of rigid, crystalline, geometrical kinds of things, but they're actually not necessarily. And that it's the flow of currents down and back up the staff that actually maintains the integrity of the staff and keeps it straight and keeps it vertical and keeps it really flowing. So that when you get enough aparthi that are reversed and pushing back on the incoming flow, what happens is that the staff starts to stretch and bend out of shape. It gets like floppy, and you can't maintain that sparking connection anymore. You can sustain a certain amount of stretch and still be able to get back to vertical, but once you get past a certain point, you actually break the template and you break the staff and you break off part of the Dimension 12 blueprint that stays up there. And then the rest of it can't be any larger than 11 and a half dimensions, which is a pretty familiar number for us in terms of the original fall. And what happens when you break that is that you don't get normal function of the electrical Merkaba anymore because you can't bring in any more new currents. The seed atom, the center of the seed atom closes, so there can't be any more in and outgoing flow. And whatever amount of energy is left in that template is all that's left to that manifestation. So it will continue to expend the energy that's in it out into manifestation for a certain time, but the magnetic spiral is going to continue to get stronger and stronger because it doesn't have any way to flow out. It can't flow out through the seed atom anymore back into source. So that manifestation is going to get more and more and more magnetic. It starts to collapse and get really dense and pull in on itself until you get a condition called molecular compaction. Once you get that condition and you've expended all the energy, the entire thing implodes in on itself, and the particum and the particate units that are in the seed atom, in that monad, annihilate each other and instigate a chain reaction that blows the entire thing up into particate units. At that point in time, those particuli don't have any memory of the previous manifestation. The memory is maintained through that transduction sequence where you get the flow from source down through, And every time the energy flows back up, every time the particum and the particle rejoin to form the particle, what happens is that the template of that original particle is the same template, but the consciousness in it is expanded. So that's how the memory is maintained. With every single phasing, what happened in that flash off point gets pulled back. In the flash on point gets pulled back and it's retained. So it's like the particle gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it remembers everything that happened into that manifestation. But it can only remember that up to the point at which that Merkaba staff breaks. So it's like once you get the point of monadic reversal, Source can't feel you anymore, and it can't know what you're doing in that universe past that point. And when all the units in that manifestation go back to particle units, their memory is destroyed. And it's basically primal units of consciousness that don't have any memory of what happened before. I would go ahead and read this, because it's so important. The cosmic Christos seed atom and the corresponding cosmic Merkaba field spirals are designed to function in perfect balance eternally, ensuring that the eternal life creation framework itself remains intact and perpetually self-sustaining. The characteristic of apparent vulnerability of the smaller universal Merkabic circulatory system and the counterbalance of the divine invincibility of the cosmic Merkabic circulatory system was intentionally created by God's Source as an intrinsic aspect of the cosmic Christ divine blueprint and Christos seed atom, as the means by which the paradox of free will could be successfully managed within the original divine intention of eternal life, perpetual motion, Christiac creation. Now the big question is, exactly where is that dividing line between cosmic and universal? It's pretty clear that anything that is universal and smaller has the capacity to fall, and that the cosmic structures are eternally held and are permanent. They cannot ever fall. And I don't know where that line is. I used to think that it was at maybe the top of a time matrix and that the echo couldn't fall, but I think we now know that that is not true, so I do not know at this point exactly where that line is. You can get monadic reversal of a universe, but you can also get it with a planet, with a being, or even something that is small as an atom or a set of molecules, which is kind of a strange thing to think of, but it can happen. Okay. This is lotus breathing, which is also called monadic breathing. So you can now know that every time you're doing lotus breathing, you're breathing the monad. This is the 6-petal lotus flow of the particum monad. The particle monad also has 6 petals. The eka lota has 6 petals. And the full eka veka lote has 24. So when you're doing 12 and 24 and then 48 petals, you know what you're doing. The 48 petals open the full eka and the parallel eka. I actually would like you to skip to heliopathy technique. And this is using lotus breathing and intention to spin the parameter field, which is the vertical shield, which is the Rishiak shield, which goes with the monad, of the core dimension 13 monad, and of the dimension 2 Gruel monad, spinning that in the correct direction. Females spin that counterclockwise, and males spin that clockwise. And the reason for that, we didn't know even 100% fully until we had the information about the parallel eka, but males and females have different current flows because we have different kinds of connections through the eka and the parallel eka to the monads and the seed atoms.
Can you just say that one more time, that aspect? Why different spins for males and females?
We're going to see a little bit more about that a couple slides down, so I think you'll get it then. This is the Yonesa 15-cell seed atom, and this is the seed atom that is located in the Akasha base shield. This has 15 cells in it that correspond to 15 radial bodies, 15 sets of consciousnesses, and the universal or Veka level of the seed atom was reset for us beginning in Hitharo and then Hitharon 2003. So the outer cells, these big ones on the outside, are the electrical cells. They were anchored in the trion field, and then the inner 8 magnetic ones were anchored in the Miage fields. The full activation of that is scheduled to complete in 2012 with activation in the rayon field of the radial bodies. We're just really zooming through, looking at a few different things. This is the matrodon. This is the seed atom of the eka. And again, when you look at this, you can see how similar this form is, the seed atom form, to the full eka-veka system. And the reason for that is that this is the core template for it, and when it is fully fleshed out into manifestation, by going through all of its time cycles, it becomes the full eka-veka. So it's like, you could say the matrodon is like, the cell of a human being at conception that becomes the fully manifested form by going through the accretion process, the frequency drawing in process of the time cycles. And these are the 8 cells of the matrodon. Our seed atom is derived from the inner 8 magnetic cells of the Yonesa seed atom. The parallel eka has the electrical cells of the seed atom. So here are the 8 cells of the matrodon. There's one big one that corresponds to the entire eka blueprint. There are 2 electrical phasing cells, 2 magnetic phasing sound cells. There's another eka 12.5 level, and then there's 2 spheres in the center here that represent the particone and the part of K crystal body structures. So if you look at these, you can see that we've got the 8 cells, but they're just arranged really differently in both of these forms. Now, we in our eka have the matrodon as our seed atom. This is a female seed atom. It's from the inner female magnetic cells of the Akasha seed atom, one level up. But our flame for our eka is a male flame. It's the Lut and Torah flame. So our eka is actually considered a male eka because of the male flame. The parallel eka has, its seed atom is called the petrodon. So it is a male seed atom, but the flame for the parallel eka is called the le adore. It is a female flame. So that is a female eka. So we've got that same pattern again where on one level, if you're looking at the eka, you could see it like as a part of chi equivalent, like a Manu force. But when we're looking at it this way, they break down into male and female. So it just depends on what perspective you're looking at them from, whether they look like they're part of chi or male or female. And then we're just going to look really briefly at the way the flames step down. You can also say that while there is 360 degrees of energy in every single one of these layers, they're not the same 360 degrees. That is, this 360 is a lot smaller than that 360. So even though they have the same amount of charge and they take the position of the 360 for that level of manifestation, it gets smaller and smaller and steps down. So it starts with, at the top, it is the Adondra 360 flame that breaks itself down into an Iane Ettore seed flame and an Adane Adore seed flame that then recombine, and we have the Androdon Akasha seed atom that has its 360 flame. This is the Adondrea. So we have the Adondra, the Adondrea. This is the Akasha. And the Akasha forms then another 360 that splits into 490s. The flames for our eka, here's our eka flame, 45 le Ettore charge, and a parallel eka, 45 le Adore charge. There are 3 more quadrants to that Akasha that we've never even talked about. So we just recently started integrating the information about the parallel eka, but there are 6 more ekas that belong to the Akasha. And I have no idea if we're going to really have to know about them or not, but we might. And this is where you really start to get the flames splitting themselves down into the 11 and 2/3, 33 and a third part. So this is at the level of the Veka, and then we get down into the density levels. So when we're in the Son of Lyra saying Shaddai Ur, we've got a Shaddai flame, and then we also have a Shaddam flame. So because we're in the Particum universe, we have a male Shaddai, pillar of light. And the Particate universe is a female Shaddam, pillar of light. Okay. Is this a whirlwind? Okay. Now I just wanted to do another slide that is kind of like a little bit of a technique highlight. And I think you can kind of see that we've sort of been increasingly accelerated in terms of our focus on monad over the years. So flame body activation, because it connects with that radial body and with the monadic levels, is really when we really started to get into what I'm going to call techniques that relate specifically to the monad. And then Hitharam and Hithalan are the reset of the universal crystal seed atom, both in our Veka and in our bodies. The Eka monadic template master key code is what helps us really begin to reconnect into the time cycles of the Eka. And then with the lotus breathing techniques, we're connecting into all the different levels of that crystal body. The particle universe, the Veka, the Eka, the parallel Eka. There's a crystal dream seed meditation, which is not really a well-known one, but it's really a beautiful technique. the monadic heliopathy so that we can spin our monadic shields in the correct direction so that we have the possibility of running those currents in the body and then actually connecting with the ecotime cycles in the body. And then everything that's in Kathara 2 and 3 are techniques for crystal body activation, focusing on the pillar of power and so forth. And then the Rushate reset cycle has also turned into a starburst cycle, which is a monadic reset that anchors in the Akasha A level. And then we've got the starburst breaths, which you could say are really powerful monadic level breaths. Okay, so at this point we've got a choice. We can, if you like, do a technique of anchoring the monad, or if people have a lot of questions, we could also do questions instead. What I'm thinking is, with regard to this technique, it is one of the real early techniques and focuses on getting the template for that 8th dimension really clear and solid in our bodies. And that 8th dimension is a really crucial dimension. So I was thinking that even though we're doing these super high level activations these days, that we have to have a nice solid 8th dimensional template to have all that run through, or it's going to be just kind of hanging out in our fields and not really fully activated. So we could do that, but if people are saying, help, I don't know what you were talking about, we can also do that. And here's what I'm going to suggest. Can you pull out the slide that had that big golden source sphere that was early on? Yeah. This is technique from Tangible Structure of the Soul. And it is suggested in this that when you're doing it, that you are looking at the sun. Since we're not going to be looking at the sun, I'm going to suggest 2 things. We are the sun, but we're going to do something that I think could be even better. Yes. So just remember, because we're going to put up another slide, that the zip symbol is the double forward slanting lightning bolts. And my suggestion is going to be that when we're done with this and you go outside, you can spend a minute or 2 in the sun and get your solar infusion then. But let's also kind of add an additional dimension to this technique of, you can look at this and imagine intend that as it's as if we're looking at the sun, right through the sun, through that central sun of the echo, all the way to the central source of everything, through the unisign into source. So it's like all the suns are exactly lined up through their centers, and as we look into the sun, we're going all the way back to the central point of creation. Okay? All right. Yeah. I'm not cold. Yes.
I just wanted to point out, I noticed maybe if you could put on the other sheet again with the forward slanting zip. But it may be wrong. I think it goes up.
It doesn't forward slant. It seems backwards to me too, but.
It's backwards to me also.
This is the way it is in tangible structure.
So it's, you picture it going down.
Down to the right. Wait, go ahead and put it on top of it. How'd you like that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, anchoring the source monad. That lines up really nicely. Okay.
In March. She later.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody ready? Go ahead and let's see. There's one additional symbol that we're going to use, but I figured that everybody knows exactly what a white mark of a star looks like, so we didn't need to have that up there. So we're going to start by everybody taking 3 slow, deep breaths. And clearly visualize that zip symbol in a pale gold color, surrounded by a white Merkaba star, positioned at the forehead between the brows of the 6th chakra. And imagine this symbol filling with light and energy as you inhale the 4th breath. Now you can open your eyes and look at the sun. Exhale the symbol and push it towards the sun. And intend that it enters the sun and picks up its light frequency spectrum. And take a few relaxed breaths as you visualize and imagine that that symbol is absorbing solar frequencies until you feel it reach a stopping sensation. The symbol is full. Now, inhale slowly, drawing this loaded symbol back towards you, and imagine that it has replicated into 2 as it's coming towards you, moving on 2 separate rays of light, and at the completion of the inhale, 1 symbol comes to rest in the thyroid gland at the 8th chakra, and 1 just above the forehead at the 6th chakra. Exhale and take a few relaxed breaths. Now on the next inhale, nice long, slow inhale, visualize the 2 symbols entering the body, 1 at the brow, 1 into the thyroid gland. And on the exhale, move the one that is at the pineal gland to the thyroid. Now inhale at the thyroid. The 2 symbols remerge into 1 and move the single symbol down to the navel. With the exhale, inhale, move the symbol down to the 2nd Kathara sphere behind the genitals. Inhale, divide the symbol into 2 and send 1 down the inside of each leg. With the exhale, have them remerge in the 12th Kathara point, and then continue all the way to chakra 13 at Earth's core. Now we're going to take 7 breaths in Earth's core and allow the symbol to absorb the frequencies in the 13th chakra. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale 6. Exhale 6. Now inhale the symbol back up through the 12th chakra into the first chakra and then into the second Kathara sphere. Exhale. Inhale up into the 5th Kathara sphere behind the navel. Exhale. Inhale up through the 8th chakra at the thyroid into the thyroid gland, and exhale. And just take a few relaxed breaths there. Now inhale the symbol up to the 11th Kathara sphere in the pineal, and exhale. Now we're going to take 3 slow, deep breaths. Inhale, hold for 3. Exhale, hold for 3. Inhale, hold for 3. Exhale, hold for 3. Inhale, hold for 3. Exhale, hold for 3. On your next inhale, see the breath filling the symbol with pale gold light. And then exhale forcefully and see the symbol bursting out around your head on a horizontal plane, surrounding the head like a halo. Inhale, drawing power from the sun to energize the symbol. Exhale and push energy from the pineal outward into the halo. And see the halo begin to glow with pale gold light. Inhale into the pineal again. Exhale forcefully into the halo and see it replicate, now forming a double halo around your head. And observe as the 2 halos begin to spin in opposite directions, one towards the left and one towards the right. And watch as these spin faster and faster and faster, until you either feel a sensation of tiredness or you lose track of the spinning. This spinning draws 8th dimensional frequency into your morphogenetic field, which we will then use to spark the Orion shield in the thyroid gland. Now inhale slowly, pulling the halos back into the pineal gland as a tiny spark of pale gold light. Exhale this spark to the thyroid. Inhale at the thyroid and exhale forcefully into the thyroid, and see the spark exploding, filling the thyroid gland with pale gold energy light. Now just breathe gently and see this pale gold light grow brighter and brighter. And notice that in this pale gold light, you can see a tiny crystal sphere in the center of the thyroid. This sphere is the spark of the living flame, the shield of Orion. It connects you to your original stream and seed of consciousness in the body of Source. This transparent sphere is now activated. It represents the part of your identity that has never left its station of at one-ment with God. And then you can just open your eyes. And remember, when you go outside, you can just take a minute and get a little sunlight going in through your eyes so you get that fully activated for yourself physically. Okay?